Welcome to another episode of r/ProRevenge. Neighbors ran over our fence. Dad installed concrete fence that wrecked 8 of their cars. I saw your crazy neighbor stories and now I bring you my father's that stuck in my memory. English is not my first language and I hope I didn't make many spelling mistakes. Too long didn't read at bottom. We live in a small private neighborhood. The neighbors are related to us more or less. Distant relatives. Everybody here is a complete nut job. They were constantly arguing over decades before me or my brother were even born. Our property line is kinda like a square and it is surrounded by road from 2 sides. Keep in mind that on one part of the road we let our neighbors use 1 square meter of the land so they could use the road safer and not damage our property. This is crucial information. This road is made of gravel. The neighbors want my parents and only my parents to pay for the entire cost to lay an asphalt road. My dad and my mother are constantly fixing potholes for 90% of the road. So naturally, our neighbors thought that they were to pay for the asphalt road. Classic r/choosing buggers. Fast forward 20 years. The road remains gravel-ish. Nobody wanted to pay for the asphalt road. One day my neighbors order a massive truck filled with tons of wood. The truck driver runs over our fence. Nobody wanted to pay for the damage. Our fence is made out of multiple bushes, trees and a little bit of metal fence too. These plants were now completely destroyed and a part of metal fence completely bent. We had to replant these plants and place a new metal fence. My father told me this was not the first time this happened but actually third. I couldn't believe it when I heard this. So this is where the revenge begins. My father is a police officer in the department where they mostly handle frauds, drug busts, etc. He knows the law well. He dug up the property line marker and placed plastic barrels filled with rocks on our property. In the next 6 hours 3 of our neighbors came knocking on the door because they hit our plastic barrels filled with rocks. They were angry and wanted to call the cops, but they never did because everybody knew that little part of land was still our property. One neighbor in particular threatened my dad that he will throw a ducking pickaxe at my father's back. Over the period of 1 year these neighbors hit the barrels so much with their cars that the barrels are now worthless. My dad was furious and he changed his petty revenge into a pro-revenge. He cut some wood to use it as a mold. He bought cement, sand and metal poles. One peaceful afternoon my father and I cemented that whole part of the land and placed some lovely flowers on top. So when they hit the concrete they can smell our flowers of victory defeat. As we expected, 5 neighbors in total wrecked their cars on the new fence and nobody came knocking on the door. Too long didn't read, neighbors ran over our fence. Did not want to pay. Dad installed a better fence that wrecked their cars. 5 neighbors in total wrecked their cars on the new fence. Jesus. You would think after the first couple of times word would spread around that maybe it isn't a good idea to drive into your fence. I know, right? It is like they don't care about their cars. It's as if your neighbors are idiots or something. It might be genetic. Duck, I am related to them. Try to bully me, new boss. This will be your shortest job ever. Back in the day, I worked as an independent IT consultant and was hired on along with another independent to subcontract on a team for a major consulting house. We'll call it CH. Everyone else on the team was a CH employee. The 2 of us were not supposed to tell the client that we weren't part of CH, but the client figured it out pretty fast because we independents were doing most of the work while CH's code monkeys were busy filling out spreadsheets all day and going on team building exercises. But I digress. The project ran past its initial deadline and my contract expired. I stayed on a week-to-week basis as a professional courtesy to get the project finished because I liked the client if not the team. Unfortunately the CH project manager was booked somewhere else for his next gig and they brought in a new guy to replace him. Let's call him David Stress. David flew in on a Monday morning to get the project handed off to him and immediately started pissing on everything to mark his territory. He was derogatory and belittling to the team and liked to raise his voice. I was working in my office, well, actually a closet with folding tables that I shared with 3 other team members and didn't hear what he was saying out in the main room, but I could sure hear his tone. Then he burst into the office and demanded, "How are we doing? Specific payroll related conversion task." I said, "We're using Program X." He waved his hand dismissively and scoffed, "That's stupid. Program X. won't work for this. You need to do something else." The other indie was in the room at the time, and she saw me coming up out of my chair. She told me later she thought I was going to deck him. I knew he was full of shit because I wrote Program X. It was custom code for this project, and he had no way of knowing what it would or wouldn't do. He was just trying to bully me and be the alpha dog. I did not deck him. Instead, I went to the client's payroll manager, with whom I'd been working closely for months, and who was driving the client side of the project. I laid it on the line. I said, "Look, I know you know I don't work for CH. I'm here on an independent contract. That contract is up, and I've been working here week to week just to get you guys through." She told me she was aware of this. Okay, this new guy, David Stress, is a bully and a blowhard, and I won't work with him. I have no contract at this point, and with him running the project I won't be back next week. I'm not asking you to do anything specific about it. I'm just letting you know as a courtesy so you can plan to transition my work to someone else. She sat back in her chair, thought a moment, and said, "Okay, thanks for letting me know." 2 hours later, David Stress was removed from his new position, the payroll manager. Faced with losing the one technical guy on the team who actually knew what was going on with a very complicated payroll system, called CH and said, "We don't want this new guy. Take him away." CH rearranged some things to keep the original project manager with the project. The funniest part of the whole thing was that CH had scheduled a welcome dinner for David at a posh steakhouse that evening. Rather than create the further embarrassment of cancelling the dinner, they actually went ahead with it, as a farewell dinner for David, who had been on the project for less than 1 day. It was fun to watch him try to put on a brave face for that. Yes, I did stay with the project to the end after that, and yes, they went live successfully. Why you shouldn't brag about your illegal activities to people that don't like you much. I started renting a house about 5 years ago. I had always lived in apartments and I was excited to finally have some space and privacy. This was ruined within the first week by my a-hole neighbor, and he made my 4 years at that house miserable. He's in his late 40s or early 50s, and despite seeming like a fully functional adult, he has never lived outside of his parents' home. He spends every possible minute cleaning or admiring his truck, so he practically lives in the driveway. When he isn't bragging about some a-hole move that he just pulled on someone, he is hitting on the wives and daughters of anyone on the street. I moved in during the winter and started noticing footsteps in my yard in the morning. I found out that he was walking into my yard to look in my windows and see what I was watching playing at night. I bought a simple security system and put a few cameras up, and this stopped. Then he started mowing my side yard. He would mow it the day after I did. I asked my landlord about this and was told that Mike, the creepy neighbor, considered it his property and kept arguing about the property line. "It's just grass, so I'll let it go." If I had guests over, he would stare at them and sometimes make comments when I wasn't around to hear him. If I was in the backyard, he would have a reason to be in his backyard. If I was in the house or the front yard, he was in his driveway where he could see in my living room. If I was mowing the yard, he would get out a lawn chair and sit and watch, putting it away as soon as I was done. It came to a head when I caught him sending his dog into my front yard one morning, instead of letting it out into his fenced-in backyard like he normally would. I told him to stay on his side of the property line, and he said that he was going to break into my house and smash my cameras and computer. Cops were called and he got off with a warning. Last fall I told my landlord that I was going to move out. During the conversation I found out that Mike was on workers' comp for an injury that he got at work, and that he was now bragging about how he was using his workers' comp checks to set up his own under-the-table landscaping business. My landlord, like most of the neighborhood, doesn't really like Mike. The landlord's son and family live across the street, and Mike has hit on the wife a few times over the years and has started to try and talk to their 17-year-old daughter. I waited for a day when he had his new work truck and trailer, with his name and number on the door, and I made a video of him working on his yard and carrying 50 bags of mulch and climbing ladders. I sent videos and pictures to the fraud department of the workers' comp office. Today I just found out that he was found guilty of fraud, ordered to pay back every dollar, and may end up in jail. I am happily living in a new place that has a lot of land between me and the neighbors. So, you want me to fire everyone at the Christmas party? Okay then. Many years ago, early 1980s, I worked for a company that did what I called mall molesting. They did market research surveys in a mall and were always stopping people to ask questions, etc. The company was run by 3 older women who had started it in their kitchen. They were opinionated and had no care about anything but money. Part of this included paying employees not by the hour but by the survey, which was against labor rules as it never matched the basic hourly wage. This is important. Christmas came, and we were planning our employee party when one of the owners called and told us that in order to avoid paying bonuses, we were to fire everyone at the party and then hire back the ones that we liked after the new year. We, the other managers and I, talked about it, and then I called the Federal Bureau of Labor, who had been trying to get the information for the employee pay for several years but had always been turned away. I had them come to the back door and let them into the file room, and showed them the boxes. I then said I had things to do in the front and would be back later and went to the front desk to finish the paperwork I needed. Said paperwork, a blow up of Santa going down the chimney with Merry Ducking Christmas typed across it, all of the management resignations and the FedEx envelope that would hold our keys and said paperwork. Labor guy finished what he needed to do. We locked up, sent the package which was timed to arrive at their Christmas party, and walked away. The company ended up spending about $250k in reimbursements and fines for the labor problem. Edited for clarification. Bro, you made it to the end? You're a ducking mad lad. I'll cut you a deal. Smash like and subscribe for more curated content. It's free and that's a great price.